The Brazos Valley looks peaceful. Rolling fields, pine brakes, winding rivers, small towns, but underneath that calm surface is a history full of ghosts, mysteries, frontier violence, strange creatures, and local legends that refuse to die. Today we're exploring 10 hotspots right here in my own Brazos Valley. Places with hauntings, folklore, cryptids, unexplained sightings, and local whispers that are locally whispered about but rarely discussed. So we're going to get back into hauntings just for a few minutes. This is actually going to cover everything. We're going to cover hauntings, we're going to cover Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, and other cryptid creatures I've never heard about. So in this podcast, we're going to be talking about all that. So let's start with the LaSalle Hotel. This is a haunted hotel, actually just literally like a mile from my house. We live really close to downtown Bryan here in Texas. So this is going to center around my area in Texas. When we left Orange County, I was sad because I was like, okay, there are no haunted places, or there's not going to be a lot of paranormal activity where we're moving to. I missed Black Star Canyon and San Juan Capistrano and going to LA and San Diego and investigating those places. But I had no idea how paranormally active my area that we just moved into is about 6 years ago, including whatever's going on in my backyard in the forest behind my house. So, yeah, we'll get into that in future investigations. And yes, we will be doing investigations soon. You guys will start getting your investigations probably once a week once I get done filming. I'm going to get a little bit ahead, so in case something happens, But anyways, a lot of these places we're going to basically be investigating, Amanda and I. We're going to plan a trip to the LaSalle Hotel. That's going to be our first location. Let me just read the rest of these to you. Historical downtown Bryan has old saloons, stories, and tunnels, which I've been into a few of them. Boonville, Texas. Now, this is just up the road from downtown historical Bryan. It actually was the original town here before Bryan kind of took over. And there's a lot of history in there. Unfortunately, it's now just kind of like a caged-in park, basically a historical town, old ghost town that you can go to. And it's supposed to be extremely haunted. I guess there's a cemetery out there, and we'll get into that. The Boonville River bottoms, Bigfoot and Dogman sightings. I've been exploring this quite a bit lately, so we'll talk about that. Traditions Golf area, shadowy figure, and woods activity. So we'll get into this a little bit more. Lake Bryan, UFO sightings, and night creatures. So we'll get into that as well. Lick Creek Park. This is in downtown College Station. Spirits and cryptid activity. And yeah, definitely want to talk about that. Old Texas Speedway, abandoned and haunted. Okay, we'll get into that. Navasota River Corridor, Bigfoot and Dogman reports. And you're hearing, yeah. And then Old Hearn Road, Wixon to Bryan, Ghostly Hitchhiker, and Lights. Okay, so let's talk about these. So let's start back up with the LaSalle Hotel. I've talked about the LaSalle many times. I actually helped do the ghost tours in downtown Bryan for a while until I became too busy and wasn't able to do it anymore. Unfortunately, I was busy with you guys doing the podcast and other things, but I also had to work. So I wasn't able to continue on with that, unfortunately. This hotel has had just so many tragedies, even when it was being built. And they just had all kinds of bad things happen. So there's an apparition known as Fred. He supposedly haunts the hotel. He's a former owner. One of the hotel owners actually was on top of the roof back in the day. There actually was power lines that went across. The power lines went across the top of the roof about 15 feet up, 10, 15 feet up or something like that. And the story goes, and I'm not going to say this is the actual story, but this is a story told to me by a witness who was actually there. He actually worked for the LaSalle. I don't know if he still does. He was a bartender, and he was up helping the owner. And they had to take measurements for insurance purposes. They didn't know how wide the building was from one side to the other, one side to the other. So they had a big old metal tape measure, and I don't know if you've ever seen them. They basically those big wind-up tape measures. probably 100 feet, so they're big. And he had in his hand, and down here in Bryan, it gets windy. It gets really windy just out of nowhere. We get a lot of storms and stuff that blow through, and before the storms blow through, we get heavy, heavy winds. 30, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour gusts come through sometimes. So long story short, he was pulling the tape measure out, and he had it in his hand, and he had the other guy standing on the side with the little tip of the measuring tape holding it to the wall. He was walking across the roof right below the power line, and the story goes that basically the wind caught it and blew it up into the power line. And these old measuring tapes were actually metal. They weren't like cotton or cloth like they are now. And supposedly that end went up and hit the power line and came down. He was on the other edge of the roof at this point in time and essentially zapped him. And supposedly that caused him to have a heart attack, and he fell to his death 5 stories below. Now, what I understand from the people that work there is he actually had a heart attack right before the wire hit the actual power line, and he fell. He had already passed away before he died. But he loved that hotel. He just loved being there and stuff like that. Supposedly he's still a prankster. Supposedly he still haunts things. Supposedly he still also is very helpful. And a lot of the people that work there quit because he was they were afraid of him. Unfortunately, they were afraid of the activity. But one of the managers there told me lots of stories about stuff that he used to do. She would bury coins and ask him if he could move them. She'd bury them in the little potted plants, and she'd find them in other places. Supposedly, a printer would come on and just start printing papers for no reason. They would see things move, a lot of gas reports, shadowy figures, footsteps in the middle of the night, and stuff like that, and apparitions. They actually, I've seen him. And then if you go down below into the basement, workers who used to work there while they were building the hotel essentially had their tools moved around and stacked against the wall. And then they've also heard, basically, they've heard like voices coming from the other room. And then when the speakeasy is open, I don't know if they just remodeled the hotel, unfortunately. Maybe for a good thing. It's probably a good thing that they did it. I heard it was in disrepair. But anyways, they fixed up the hotel. It's supposed to be beautiful inside now, so it's definitely worth going out and checking out if you like the paranormal. Go stay at the Little Saw Hotel here in Bryan. It's beautiful. The downtown Bryan area is also very haunted. We'll get into that in just a second. Anyways, so they hear voices coming from another room. Things move inside the speakeasy. I've actually talked to the owner of the speakeasy, and he had a lot of stories to tell. So if you ever get a chance to go down there, if you're over 21 and you get a chance to go down there, go check out the basement. And if you're able to get into the speakeasy, go talk with the owners and see what they have to say. Also, there's supposedly a woman who was in the bathroom. One of the owners was closing up one night and was just checking downstairs in the basement to make sure that nobody got left behind. He was checking the restrooms, saw a woman go into the bathroom stall, and she closed the door. And then when he went to knock on the door to check on her and ask her to leave, he finally opened. He said she came running out, went past him, went to the back door, and disappeared. She never actually opened the door. She just disappeared at the back door. So that's pretty cool. Cool ghost story there. All right. So let's continue on with historical downtown Bryan. Now, I used to be able to do the ghost tours down there. There's a lot of old reports of apparitions and stuff like that. So there was an old deputy that actually, unfortunately, was stabbed to death right in front of Murphy's Law down there. And he was on duty one night, and they used to carry a billy club. I don't know if they carried gun. This is back in the 40s, I think. So they weren't. I don't know if they were carrying pistols or not, but they used to enforce the law with a old billy club, right? Just a short one, not like the big batons you see them carrying today, but a billy club. So this gentleman, I'm not going to tell his name, comes walking out of a bar, and he's been known to cause problems, and he's drunk and whatever else. And he essentially came walking out and decided that he was going to cause a problem. And so the Deputy went over there and told him to, keep it down and basically keep the peace and whatever else. And he smacks him on top side of the head with a little bully club. And that really pissed this gentleman off. And unbeknownst to the deputy, he had a knife in his pocket, pulled out the knife and stabbed him. And unfortunately, the officer didn't actually die on the concrete there. He actually ended up dying back in the at a residence in town Bryan, but he is said to haunt that area. The old theater down there, the one I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get in trouble downtown. I do live there around here. I don't want to get into too much trouble. But anyways, the old theater, you'll notice it basically doesn't have a roof or anything like that, but it's still used as a theater. It's been refurbished and stuff like that. There was a janitor working there one night, and essentially he was out there and cleaning, and he kept hearing a voice, and this voice kept saying, "You need to leave. You got to go." And the story goes, I've heard many different renditions. I've read many renditions also online. Story goes that he was in there for about an hour cleaning, and whatever this was just would not leave him alone. He felt uncomfortable and finally got to the point where he just left. And the story goes that there's one story that says a few minutes after he left, the building actually collapsed. The roof caved in from the building. And there's another rendition that goes, it was 2 or 3 hours later that it actually caved in. So whatever version you like is great. So yeah, I don't know which one it was, but it's crazy that a ghost actually helped him and told him, "Hey, you need to go. You shouldn't be in here. This is about to collapse. You need to go." Got him out to safety and before everything collapsed in, and so nobody actually perished. If you follow my investigations over the years, we've been doing this so long. We've been through so many theaters. Theaters tend to hold a lot of paranormal activity. There's just so much energy and all this other stuff that goes into theaters. I mean, almost every theater I've ever been called to, we've actually been able to prove, not that it's haunted, but that there was paranormal activity going on at the location, and that there were entities there that were still enjoying the theaters. Unfortunately, a lot of the time it was through suicides. The theater across the way from the theater I was just talking about, again, I will not mention any names or anything like that or locations, was used as a morgue at some point, and during the 40s and 50s, basically, and I'm not going to get into the story too much because I don't want to get myself in trouble. I know the Historical Society doesn't really like it when you talk negatively about that, and I'm not trying to put this in any positive, any negative way. So anyways, there are people that haunt the theater across the way too. All of downtown Bryan seems to have different entities. What people don't realize, this area, the Brazos Valley, and surrounding areas too, there was a lot of stuff that happened here. So number one, you had, when the settlers first came in, there was German settlers, there was Polish settlers, there was Spanish settlers, there was Mexican settlers, people from all over the world. This place is kind of like a melting point for settlers, right? So when they came here, the natives that actually lived here were not too fond of them. Let's just put it that way. And they didn't get along. And I'm trying to keep this PG, guys, so bear with me. I mean, you can figure out what I'm saying if you're older, but we do have a young audience, so just bear with me. Anyways, they fought a lot, right? There was a lot of fighting that happened between the two, civilizations and stuff like that. And so a lot of bad things happened out here. And then also downtown Bryan, mainly with saloons, believe it or not. It's not a small town. It's a pretty good sized town. And basically it became a town in 1904, and the historical buildings, a lot of the historical buildings are still here. And we'll talk about Boonville in just a minute. But originally the town was actually named Boonville, not Bryan. And what it was a settlement. And I think there was about 1,800 settlers originally here. And then William J. Bryan brought his family in, and other people followed him in. and they started building a bigger town. And little by little, they started to sell cotton and corn, and that became a staple here, and it still is today. And so what happened was, as they developed farms and created plantations and all this stuff, they pushed the Indians out, the Native Americans out, and eventually the settlers won. Unfortunately, they couldn't just kind of, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to be disrespectful to either group. Anyway, so once that settlement got big enough, everything kind of calmed down, if you will. And then the railroad came through in 1904. When that happened, the whole town of Bryan basically boomed, right? It went from about 1,800 people to about 60,000 in about 10 years. So it just massively grew. Plantations popped up everywhere. And unfortunately, there were people that were not treated very well. Slaves and stuff were a big thing out here, and so you have that energy as well from out here. There's just a lot of things that happened in the Brazos Valley, and of course around all over Texas and other states too, but especially we're just focusing on the Brazos Valley. So that energy is still here. A lot of that energy is still here. I mean, we've helped people that lived over by Boonville, that we came across a family of slaves that lived basically on this land. Unfortunately, they perished in a fire where an old hotel was, and I've talked about this slave owner before. She was not a nice lady. But anyways, their structure, the hotel, all these people perished in the fire. And actually was able to do research and find out that the fire was actually a real thing. It really happened. So they were basically living on, working on a plantation and stuff like that. So anyways, this whole area, I just want to give you guys kind of a rundown of why this area is so haunted. It seems like downtown Bryan is like the Mecca. And we live, like I said, we live less than a mile away. I mean, if you drew a straight line from where we live to downtown Bryan, we basically would be we're in Bryan, but I mean, we would basically be on the west side of Bryan, of the town. So there was probably old settlements out here and stuff like that. It's just very overgrown with forests and stuff, and they've been developing it a lot lately. So yeah, there's been a lot of bad things that have happened in the Brazos Valley. A lot of tragic events. The Harvey Massacre, where the Harvey family was slaughtered just outside of town by Indians. And I've talked about this before, so you guys can go back and listen about that before. So anyways, like I said, there's a lot of old saloons and stories. Downtown Bryan used to have basements. If you ever watch the old videos or old shows, and sometimes they still show them today, like in New York, where you see them bringing the meat down into the basement in New York. Well, downtown Bryan used to be that way too. A lot of people don't realize that there used to be another level underneath where the street is now, and there are actual basements and stuff under there. And what a lot of people don't know is this area runs on wells. We drink well water. We don't have like water pumped in from somewhere else. We have wells all over the place out here. And so underneath the basements of a lot of the stores, a lot of them are closed off now. But this little girl named Wendy, and I'm not going to say where the store is, but the basements were dark, right? There was just a big open hole where they would, take a bucket with a rope attached, and they'd drop it down in there, and they'd pull up their water, and that's where they got their water, right? For their businesses and whatever else in the homes. She unfortunately somehow, imagine being down there with a candle, and it's really hard to see. I mean, if you ever gone in with a really dull flashlight to a really pitch black area, you can't see much more than what the surrounding light is, right? So she unfortunately fell into that well and drowned. She's one of the ghosts that haunts downtown Bryan. And I don't know if I've ever told the story, but I used to talk to Wendy all the time. She used to come through our ghost box and on the spirit box, and we would make contact with her, and we would try and communicate with her and get the other spirits to communicate with her as well. They don't really like her that much in downtown Bryan, so she always told me she wanted to come home with me. And if you're a paranormal investigator, you know that when you tell a spirit it can come home with you, it's not a good idea to ever allow a spirit to come home with you. Doesn't matter how long you've been communicating with that spirit, even if you're 100% sure that that spirit is a spirit, right? Not something else. It's still you got to be very cautious about allowing something to come home with you, because you could open up a can of worms that you don't want. So, anyways, Wendy would communicate with us, and she would follow us around downtown, and we used to talk to her all the time. And she was a great little girl. I was coming home one night, I got in my car, and I had just cleared myself. And if you've never heard me say this, when you're done with an investigation, right? Even if you just go somewhere that's supposedly haunted, maybe you spend the night in a haunted hotel. When you get in your car, you get your first stop light, first stop sign, whatever, first stop. You always want to clear yourself. If there's anything with me, you can't go home with me. You need to go back to where you came from. And then when you get to halfway home, same thing. When you get home, you just want to clear yourself again. You don't ever say it in anger. You just want to say very strictly, if there's anything with me, you can't go home with me, right? So I was doing that, and then on my satellite radio, this little girl's voice comes through, and it says, "Go home." And I'm like, "No, Wendy, you're not going with me." I upset her, unfortunately, and after that, I didn't really have much communication with her, but I've heard that she does get communicated with a lot. There's a lot of little spirits, kid spirits in down Bryan that communicate with people. They're very playful and very, fun to communicate with. But there's a lot of paranormal. We came across, 40 or 50 spirits in downtown Bryan. There's an old priest. If you're walking down not Main Street, but the road next to it, there's a plaque on the wall across from the LaSalle Hotel, and there's a priest name there, and he does communicate with us. He's very strong. He's very protective of that area, and he's a really cool spirit. I forget his name. Anyways, I could talk about Bryan all night long. So let's talk about Boomville. So I've actually not really been to Boomville. We've driven by it, and unfortunately, we were planning on going there right before COVID happened. And ever since, the gates have been locked. You can't get in there. I don't know what exactly is going on with that. If you guys are local and you're able to maybe help us get into Boomville, we would love the opportunity. If you've ever been to Boomville, Texas, and you've been able to get in there and investigate, I know I've talked to a couple of people that had the opportunity, and they had a lot of activity. It's said to be extremely haunted by the people that used to be there. There's an old cemetery that actually is supposed to be extremely haunted too. Figures are seen walking through foundations of the ruins of the old buildings out there. Misty forms are seen by the old cemetery. Whispering is heard along the trails. And I imagine that they're inside those buildings. They still have old buildings that they've restored. They look like old cabins. I imagine they're very haunted too. Basically, the folklore is from frontier deaths, epidemics, and violence left a spiritual mark. Again, that isn't even older than downtown Bryan. That goes back in probably until 1840-ish time. Let me look and see if I can find a little bit more information about that. So it was established in 1841 and it was named for Mordecai Boone. He was a Texas Ranger. So I'm not going to read this to you guys. The courthouse was a significant local gathering spot. So that's basically what kept the town alive, was the fact that there was actually a gathering spot like that, the courthouse. I have here, from what I understand, General Sam Houston would frequent there. And then in 1866, basically the railroad came into Bryan. I thought it was 1903, but essentially in 1866 they started building the road towards Bryan, and basically that's what basically stopped Boomville from essentially staying, a prominent town. They moved it towards this way, and they used to move a lot of cotton and corn through the city of Bryan. And that's basically what caused Boonville to die. But again, if you guys know more about Boonville, please feel free to comment down below. Like if you've been there, comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. All right, so the Brazos River bottoms. This is Bigfoot and Dogman sightings. I've heard a lot about this lately. And we'll get into Lake Bryan here in a minute. But I've heard over by my work. The Brazos River actually runs right by it. And then, of course, the Brazos River runs about 2 or 3 miles from my house. And there's also a lot of little creeks and they call them rivers, but there's a lot of little creeks that basically run through Texas. I mean, there's so many waterways out here, it's not even funny because usually Texas gets a lot of rain. So essentially, those little waterways spill into the Brazos River. So it is possible for whatever, like Bigfoots or Dogman to walk up those creeks. I know there's a lot of deer. There's a lot of wildlife out here. I mean, this is basically literally, this area is forested where I live. Brazos Valley is very forested. We're if you're looking at Texas, if you split Texas in half and you go to the right, if you're looking straight at Texas on a map, we're we're not East Texas, but we're middle to East Texas. And as you go further east towards the Louisiana border, the more woodsy it gets. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy how many forests are out here, and it's a very wet and rainy area. So anyways, all right. So both hunters and fishermen have claimed to see large bipedal creatures crossing the river. There's loud, deep howls at night. Wolf head creatures seen near the tree lines. Rocks thrown at fishermen. Sudden silence followed by heavy footsteps. So that all sounds like Bigfoot, like, things to me. You got rocks thrown, howls. Lately, there has been a lot of people reporting in Bryan College Station gunshots, but they're coming from the forested areas. Now, remember I told you I think there's the whole podcast about the thing in my backyard? We've been hearing the same like bang sounds. They don't. Sometimes they sound like a gun. Sometimes they don't. Usually it's a single bang, and it's coming from the forested areas. And I'm looking around, I'm going, what the hell? And I've been collecting data, guys. I've been collecting data, and I'm not going to show you guys on here because I want to show you when we do the actual investigation. Man, I've been scouting this area. I got stopped by, I think I talked about this on the podcast recently. I got stopped by a guy over at a gas station on my way to work, real close to the Brazos River. He has a farm out there, and he says that, Bigfoots are stealing stuff from his garden. I had the same thing. My pear tree it's got to be pushing 30 feet now, 20, 25, 30 feet tall. It's huge. It's gotten so big in the last 3 or 4 years, it's just taken off. Anyways, some of those pears are 15 feet up, 15 to 20 feet up in that tree. I mean, I had to get a ladder 2 years ago to get up there, and I have a 12-foot ladder, and I was up at almost the very top rung. I could barely reach those. So, I'm 6 feet. So on a 12-foot ladder, probably about 14 feet up, something's reaching up and grabbing those pears. I don't know what that noise was. Anyways, that's crazy to me. And he's saying that they're stealing corn, and there's cornfields all around us. We have farmers all around us, specifically on the way to work. There's a lot of deer out here. And so I don't know if the thing behind my house is a dogman. I'm hoping it's not. I've heard a lot of reports over at Lake Bryan about dogman. People are reporting dogman over there. Again, that's just like, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles from my house. There's a lot of hogs over there. Big population of hogs, unfortunately. So, all this stuff I'm starting to go, okay, wait a minute. It's like we're in, and then of course UFOs. There's a lot of UFOs reported in this area. I've seen a lot of strange things in this area, driving home and stuff like that. And a lot of people actually have been at my work, and even the crews, because I work with the railroad. A lot of the crews are now coming in reporting stuff to me as well, and I don't want to get into that too much. but they're seeing strange lights in the sky. They're seeing possible Bigfoots, stuff like that, coming through these areas. So it's very, very possible that Dogman and Bigfoot are in this area. They've been reported. They talk about the Texas Triangle. We're not quite in the Texas Triangle, but I would imagine that they're down this area too, because we're very woodsy. And as you get further to the east of Texas, they're spotted more over there. So, all right. So let's talk about this. So this transition golf area. This is not very far from my house either. Shadow figures and woods activity. So the local joggers and hikers are reporting tall, shadowy figures moving through the forest and trees. Now, when Bigfoot moves through the trees, I mean, if you've ever seen the tree lines at night and there's any light at all, let's just say there's moonlight out, they look like a shadowy figure. A Bigfoot does, because there's a lot of the times they have darker fur, and so all you're seeing is their silhouettes. So it's very possible that they could possibly, and again, I mean, a Dogman would look like that too. Like I said, there's a lot of wooded areas still in Bryan and College Station. We're surrounded by woods, and then farms, of course, too. But a lot of downtown Bryan still has woodsy areas. So let's see, something pacing in the woods, eye shine at unusual heights. And I know the eye shine behind my house, those eyes are size of baseballs. I mean, they're not small. I can see how big they are. I remember at Joe's, that's what taught me the eye shine, because we would see them literally like blink. You could see them blink their eyes, and their eyes are out here. They're, my eyes are 3-4 inches apart. These things are, 8, 10, 12 inches apart, and they're not low. I've gone and measured the areas they're at. They're at 12 feet or taller, some of them. I've gone and stood in the areas where I saw these things during the day, using the camera to kind of gauge the height. I'm 6'2", and these things are 2 feet taller than me. I mean, these things come across behind my fence are 2-3 feet above my fence, and the fence is basically down at the bottom of a 6-foot berm, so that we can basically see right over the berm, over the fence line, where we have the overflow area. And that's why I've been seeing all those things. They come to the edge of the woods. They don't come out of the woods usually, but they do come to the edge of the woods. So, very interesting that they're seeing that over there. That's, like I said, that's not very far from my house. And again, I've told you guys, I think that they use creeks and stuff like that as highways. And there is a creek right behind my house. I mean, literally where I'm seeing this. And imagine that these people that are hiking, again, there's a lot of creeks, there's a lake over there, and stuff like that. I've not actually been into this area. I want to get over there. They're doing a lot of construction, so I don't know what the rules are for hiking over there after dark. I know there's a camping area, so I would be very interested to go check this out. And we may do a Bigfoot episode on this, where I actually go investigate, and we'll take you guys with us. So getting into Lake Bryan, the UFO lights and night creatures. Again, they're talking more about Bigfoots and Dogman. But I have seen things over there. I have a friend that actually owns property over by that area. She lives over by the farmland just outside of where that is, and she's seen UFOs over there as well. I drive up in that area to come and go for work, and I've seen things I can't explain. I was driving home one night, and it was towards the Lake Bryan area, but not. I thought it was just a plane flying in that area, right? Until it stopped and hovered. I'm like, okay, it must be some kind of a helicopter. And this is at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it just stopped. It was flying straight, came across, and stopped in the middle of the sky. I'm like, what the heck? And then it basically just faded out. Just faded out. So I was like, okay, that's really strange. I have no explanation for that. I don't know what that was. At this point, I can call it a UFO because I can't put any other name to it at this point. I don't think any plane would stop and then turn its lights out. I don't think a helicopter would stop and turn its lights out. And for my skeptics, I know you're thinking, okay, well, maybe it just turned in a way you could see the lights, but it never showed back up. I watched it for an hour. It just never showed back up. So the reports over at Lake Bryan are triangle-shaped lights moving silently. I've seen this. I've seen something like this in the daytime. I actually went to grab my camera and it was too far away. It almost looked like a blimp. Whatever it was huge. Orbs dropping into the water. So, if you guys know of USOs off the coast, usually seen in the oceans, something large walking along the tree line. We actually stayed at Lake Bryan. We did an investigation. We never heard anything that night. We were only there for one night, and we didn't want to get in trouble for going out and walking around in the woods at night. We will do that sooner or later. Voices heard across the lake when no one's around, and then rocks thrown near campsites. Again, that sounds like Bigfoot or Dogman activity. I don't know if Dogman really throw rocks at people. They could. All right, so let's talk about Lick Creek Park, spirits and cryptid activity. Gotta hurry up because I got another podcast coming on here, guys. Okay, so the claims are of a woman crying in the distance when the park is empty, dark shapes crossing the trail, possible Bigfoot prints found in the rain. Ooh, that's interesting. Trees breaking in the deeper woods. Okay, so definitely got to go check this place out, right? Joggers stalked by an unseen presence. That's really interesting. And then, as I always say, if you look, I'm not going to ever share my pins probably publicly until I probably retire, which will never probably happen. But on my Bigfoot pins, I've pinned thousands of locations across the whole United States, and I'm starting work on the world. But every pin I've got dropped has UFO sightings, haunted, Bigfoot, and possibly Dogman. And they're all in the same area. It's very strange, right? So I didn't, wasn't going to share that. But anyways, it's very strange how all four of those things, and maybe other things too, that I haven't heard about or whatever, all seen in the same locations. That's very strange to me. So very possible that, again, this area is very wooded, guys. I know everybody, oh, well, Bigfoot's only live out in the woods. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think there are Bigfoot reports from the Brazos Valley going back to the early Indians here. And I think as population centers have kind of boomed and pushed them out, they're on the outskirts. They stay on the outskirts, but they do come into town every once in a while, or they use the riverways in the woods to migrate through to get to other places. Okay. Old Texas Worldly Speedway, abandoned and haunted. Unfortunately, this place is now gone. It has been bulldozed. It was between College Station and Navasota, and there was voices heard around the abandoned track, shadow figures in the bleachers, apparitions of people from the past races, and strange lights over the field. So, mainly haunted. But I would imagine that basically this had a lot of residual activity. It makes me wonder if the people that, came to this event or whatever just left their energy there. I mean, again, it's another place where a lot of energy was poured in. When you're sitting there cheering and you're excited and all this energy, you exhale all this energy into a location. People are speeding for their favorite, driver and all this other stuff. Just makes me wonder if all that energy got left, and maybe it's just kind of rerunning in history. My niece actually lives over in this place now, where the new homes were built over there. So I'll have to discuss with her if she's experiencing any paranormal activity, because she is a little bit sensitive. So maybe she can tell us more if she's experiencing any activity from this location or not. So if you guys live over there where the old speedway was, let us know. Comment down below. I'd love to hear if you're experiencing any paranormal activity. All right, so the Navajo River corridor, they're experiencing Bigfoot and Dogman. Again, this is in the south of Brazos Valley. They're reporting huge bipedal creatures spotted near the river crossings. Growls and screams not matching local wildlife. Fresh tree breaks. Hunters reporting a wolf standing on its two legs. So that's a description of what they call Dogman. And if you don't know what a Dogman is, can be a bipedal, it looks like a werewolf, except for it doesn't have paws, has fingers like humans, and they usually have sharp fingernails. They are said to be basically they are said to hunt humans supposedly. Again, that could go into your missing 411 reports. I think a lot of those reports, are misidentified, but I don't really think Bigfoot are taking all those people. I think it's other things happening too. I think people are being murdered up there, and other things are happening besides Bigfoot just taking everybody. Anyways, so basically, it connects to the Sam Houston National Forest, which is a major Bigfoot and Dogman region. Okay, so we've talked about the Sam Houston National Forest many times. We will be doing another investigation there, hopefully shortly, depending on the weather. I'm thinking probably next year we're going to start filming again. I'm in the process of scouting locations, which takes a dang lot of time, unfortunately, especially the area behind my house. You don't just go, I mean, a lot of people just go out to the forest and start doing screams and howls and tree knocks and expect to, experience something. That's not how Bigfooting works. When you go Bigfooting, you have to look for the reports. You have to find reports of old sightings, old places where people were hearing tree knocks, where people reporting screams and howls. You have to look into it. You have to do your research, and then you have to go into these areas and see if there's any new activity. You have to go out there and camp yourself. You have to go out there at night and just sit and listen and try and experience it for yourself. It just takes a lot of time. You have to do your homework before you just go into these locations and start doing a full-blooded, full-bore investigation. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed, probably. Meet with witnesses. See if you can find any witnesses around the area. You have to do a lot of research before you just go in there. If you're lucky enough, maybe you meet somebody that lives in the area, and then basically there you're in to find more people. Maybe the neighbors had an experience. Maybe there's a local pub that they can take you to and introduce you around, and just, slowly but surely get people to kind of tell you about their experiences. Maybe they live in the area. Maybe they've had an experience. Maybe they've seen something, and so on and so forth. And as you start to find locations around where they've had activity, you can find you'll start to see a pattern. You'll start to see a pattern. Okay, this house had activity, that one didn't, but the house down the road did. And as you start dropping these pins on a map, you start to see a pattern. Okay, so there's a lot of activity in kind of a line or in this area. And then you get a hub of that activity, and then you can start investigating that area. Maybe you go camp there that night. Maybe you go just sit there. Maybe you do some tree knocks. Maybe you leave cameras up and stuff like that. So, all right, guys, this is our last one. It's Old Hearn Road, and it says Bryan to Wixon Valley, and this says ghostly hitchhikers and lights. Now, I did my research into this. The urban legends suggest, and the claims in the folklore are that a woman in white is seen walking the roadsides. Again, this is another phantom hitchhiker. Basically disappears when cars approach. Bright lights moving ahead of drivers. Shadowy figures darting across the road. Now, I've done my research into this. Now, this could be right, but essentially, I think this basically is just something that kind of got made up. So I don't mean to devalue this. I mean, if you've driven on Old Hearn Road, Bryan to Wixon Valley, and you've seen the hitchhiker, or you've seen a shadow, or you've seen these lights, please feel free to comment down below. I'm not saying that this isn't real, but everything I've read about it says that it's actually not this road. It's other roads around it, other areas like the Saratoga Ghost Lights, which is another place I want to go back because, number one, haunted, number two, Bigfoots, and number three, UFOs. So yeah, I mean, I've the reports I've heard is that basically the people have picked up a hitchhiking ghost. Usually it's a younger male or just they pick up a female, and she hops in with them, and they start driving down the road, and she tells them where she wants to get out. And a lot of these reports go back to the 60s and 70s. And so basically, and sometimes they lend her, she's cold, so they lend her a jacket or something to keep warm, guys being a gentleman. And when they go to drop the female off, number one, she's not there, or number two, if they've offered her a coat or something, they'll find it at the cemetery and they'll find it at the lady's grave. So that's pretty interesting. This seems like it's a very haunted location. It's more mysterious and alive with folklore than people really realize. Ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and frontier spirits, they all seem to be part of the story. And the more I look, the more the land's actually starting to talk. All right, guys, I'm Matt with Deep Woods Paranormal, and we're making the paranormal normal. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.